Anyway, oh hey, EDL's going to go on a bit of an adventure here to start off. You adventure in the plains. It's not a rabbit, but in fact it's a giant wolf spider. So you're attacking normally with a +2 modifier. An 11. Hey, you beat the wolf spider. Congrats, EDL. Ding, ding, ding. Hmm. Mr. Grimm, you have to give it a minute cooldown. Oh. There you go. All right. That's for the victory. Yeah, there's a global cooldown of 60 seconds on every one of the dungeons and a personal cooldown of 5 minutes. So this means that for EDL can't go back into the plains adventure for another 5 or for about a little under 5 minutes. But Grim, if you wanted to, you have to wait 1 minute. And Dark Wolf, braids are not easy to draw. I can believe that because it's a lot of like twisting and curling. And in fact, we'll get into a little bit of art. As you can see, and also Dark Wolf, if you want to share some of the artwork that you have as well, please let me know and I'll be happy to do so. What you all are looking at here is some sculpty miniatures that are in miniature scale, right? So if we're talking, like traditional painted figures here, let's see if it'll focus. Come on now. Well, it's not doing a good job here. There we go. So, I mean, we have the traditional sculpted and painted figurines like this. Well, what one of the players at my store has done for himself and his kids that he plays a version of D&D with, he bought some Sculpty and he made little 1-inch figures out of Sculpty based on their race, class, and the weapons that they use. And so I forgot to ask him how long it took for him to make these characters, but I asked him if he wouldn't mind me showing them off to you all, and he said, yeah, feel free to. And so that's the party that he made, that he and his children run together. Isn't that really cool? Sorry if it's a little blurry for some of these. The focus might not always want to be on the right thing. So there's a ranger using a bow and a longsword, and he just put a little piece of string through it. There's a dragonborn, kind of similar. Or no, I'm sorry. Wait, dragonborn? I think he gave a dragonborn a tail. That one's supposed to be a tiefling with swept back, twisted horns. It does take some skill to do space, but in all honesty, I mean, small fingers, Sculpty is rather easy to use. It's like a very light clay. It's easy to mold. It stays kind of moist and malleable for a while, and then you throw it in the oven and bake it. If you wanted to make your own minis, I would suggest doing something like this. Just go and buy a multi-color pack of Sculpties at Packetans or Michael's or whatever hobby store you have next to you. Like, I don't know if you have a Hobby Lobby or something. But he just sat down and in his spare time, he made these little figurines. By the way, he explained that this little green part up here, because this is a sorcerer that knows Acid Splash, that's supposed to be the Acid Splash attack coming out of the character's hand. But his son really wanted that attack, and so he decided to model that onto the figure. And there's a paladin with a mace. Looks like all the kids wanted to be dragons or tieflings, right? Yeah, Dark Wolf. Again, all it takes is getting a little bit of Sculpty and just making a basic figure. You can do something like this, or if you really want to make detailed miniatures, well, I mean, 3D printing's a thing now, right? If you do 3D modeling skills, you could just go and then go down to for those of you who aren't local to the area that we're talking about, there's a place called Ehovie that's a vocational school. They have something called the Fab Lab, and that allows you to. It's open to the public. They can bring in 3D models and they can print them in the lab for the cost of materials only. It's kind of a nice public resource. And of course, people have 3D printers at home now, and there's commercial places that'll do it. So you can find a lot of places online if you want to, do models that way. You can make fun at-home models with Sculpey like this, or you can find what's called green stuff. And that's kind of like, green stuff is like a modeling clay or epoxy. And that's, if you're, that would allow you then to make a mold in a traditional sense. So you carve the figure with some little carving tools. And then your green stuff will dry in that fashion. And then if you want, you can press that hardened green lump into wax or some other things, and then you can mass produce models that way if you really wanted to. When they're done, I'll send pics of the Warhammer models. Yeah, please, please, Romonger. I'd love to see that stuff. Works in progress, miniature painting, miniature sculpting like this. All that stuff would be awesome. I'd love to showcase it and just show the talent that's out there. And also, it's, this might have taken an hour or a couple hours to do. And you know what? For what we're doing in D&D, that's great. That has sentiment, that has heart, that's the character, right, that you built. And it's fun, it tells a story. You don't have to be a master modeler or to make some, like super exotic 3D print or anything. Now, what I also wanted to show off, Polyramic Systems, sold by Citadel from Games Workshop and several other brand games. Is that, so is the Polyramic Systems, is that what you're talking about, is like the green stuff, Shadzar? Soraya has a small braid in her hair. Okay. Like a little loop, or like a loop on the side, Dark Wolf? Or like a braid going down the back of her neck and back. Now, for all of you wondering, this is Ah. So this is, my cat's giving me a mustache here. This is Ah, and this is who you were talking to around a campfire. So, some fun stuff. This top illustration here that says important event. There was a linen closet that had an animated broom that decided to throw down with Ah. And I'll tell you that that linen closet's not going to walk straight for a week after what Ah did to it. So this was some more character art by Kitty, is her name here. And then she was going by Ah as a roleplay. The braid is in the front left ear. And then, so this is Ah now as she's grown up and she's become an adventurer, right? So she's got her coins here. There's her weapon and her shield. And I figured that this would be fun, right? Get into it. Draw your character. You don't have to be a master artist. You don't have to, have gotten some master's in an art degree or to be a 3D printing whatever. Grab some Sculpey, get a pencil while you're playing, feel inspired, get into your character. Or Ro, who has plenty of experience, as he or she was saying in Warhammer 40k, is now branching out into D&D, and by virtue of that is bringing all of those skills that it takes to make Warhammer models, and is now getting into D&D models. So yeah, there we go. This is Ah. And these were some minis of one of my players that he made for himself and his children. For the record, that is the one that he is. That's the one that he's running in the Curse of Strahd game, because he's playing a rogue, if I recall correctly, a rogue named Zoc. But yeah. Hey guys, gotta go. Been up since 6 in the morning. Mr. Grimm, thank you very much for stopping by, for chatting and participating in roleplay and, asking questions and wanting to get into it. Hopefully you do end up joining the D&D campaign. So take care, and thanks for being a part of this. Now, speaking of character art, There is some stuff. I typed in a female halfling monk, and I shouldn't run into a problem that we had last time regarding some tiefling art. At least hopefully not. But as you can see, depending on what we wanted to do, there's plenty of different options for how we want to style her. And especially by looking at this, we can be inspired or think outside the box. For instance, many people see tieflings as just having like ram horns or something along those lines. She almost has antlers, like a rack of antlers in this case, right? You see all these little nubs growing off. There's nothing saying that you can't have that as a tiefling. Enjoy it. Get into it. Feel inspired. You know, what is she doing? What does she look like? Because this is going to be a very good bridge into our next topic. Honestly, isn't that a cute one? So, there's that. I have this open in case we need to take some notes. Oh, hey! Braden Riggleman, thank you for subscribing. That means a lot to me. And, I'm going to have to look into why it was the chasing zombie, because I could have sworn I replaced that with another GIF. I owe you a little bit more than a running zombie for doing that. And that's a subscription on YouTube, so thank you very much for that if you're watching here. Because this is a channel that bleeds a bit over into YouTube. As we get going in this segment, by the way, if you want to join Discord and YouTube, bada boom, there we go. Those are ways that you can do that. In case you want to go back and watch something again, you want to get some inspiration, you want to have some lovely D&D ASMR. How much HP is taken away by cheering? I think it's a 1-for-1. So if you want to knock off 50 hit points, it would be 50 bits. And then following and other activities, bring it down in different increments. I don't have that off the top of my head, though, Del. I'm sorry. Alright, so what I wanted to talk about, and feel free in the chat to bring up topics, ask questions, share your own experiences, and you can also ask me for input about mine. Because I've been playing D&D since 3rd edition, not even 3.5 came out, and I've been running D&D for almost as long. I wanted to bring up that we as players are co-DMs in the game, right? We have the typical power structure of your DM is presenting you roleplay content, and hey Bubonic, welcome in. Hey, you got it up. What are you talking about? Are we talking about a new boss? Because Cherries ended up defeating me last night and ended up becoming the very thing that she brought down herself. So, we are player characters. Let's say, there's a handful of us around a table, and you have a DM. Well, we're each playing our singular character, right? We have our character sheet. We know our backstory. Rowmonger, to go into what you were doing, you said you have a 10 to 13 page backstory. And, I'm not laughing to make fun of you because that's really cool that you do. But again, you want to reduce it down to about a minute blurb. But we know who we are, and we know how we're interacting with the world and what we're doing. The DM plays every other character in the story. The DM is every monster, sound effect, ghost, human, merchant, goblin, the wind, time. Not a PC, but a PC's relative was murdered. I'm not sure I'm following you, EDL. So, as PCs, right, we're responsible for ourselves. We're keeping track of our spells and our hit points. Well, the storytelling doesn't just come down from the DM. Sure, a vast majority of that does. Oh, it didn't send the previous message. Oh, gotcha. Okay. So if I'm your DM and you're my players, you would walk into a room and I would describe it to you, and I'd say, oh, it's a very opulently appointed dining room. We'll use an example because we played Curse of Strahd earlier. And I can go through and I'm describing the wood and things like that. And even still, it's a cursory summary of the room, right? You walk in and this is what everyone, even if you took your dump stat as wisdom and you have a -1, there's a table. It is made of a rare wood. You see silken curtains. You see all of this finery. You're going to get that. So then it's up to you as player characters to investigate a bit. You know, not necessarily to ask 1,000 questions, but I as a DM, especially if I'm doing a homebrew and not just a mod, might have more to uncover, or I might not have even considered something. So what I need you to do as the DM is to say, oh, okay, you said that the curtains were made of silk material. And I would say, oh, yeah, that's right. And so you'd say, oh, well, maybe I'm going to look for a merchant's tag or some sort of a maker's mark on them. And that way I can determine who they might have bought them from. Because, I don't know, it could be relevant. Hopefully what you're doing and addressing the DM is relevant to the story, or even if it's not initially, you will reveal how it will be. And all of a sudden, you as a PC have now just created a curtain manufacturer in the world. Because I just described to you curtains, and you have an idea, you're going to do some crime scene investigation, and you're going to backtrack curtains, or you want to go to the manufacturer and ask them, well, what about this family that just bought 2,000 gold pieces worth of curtains from you, that kind of a thing. And then you can look more and more into things. So what you did as a PC by simply asking, is there a tag or a maker's mark on the curtain, is you have just generated the producer of a curtain into the world. Whether or not that producer is somehow relevant or forward, that's up to the DM, but one didn't necessarily exist. You only saw the end of the chain of process. You defeated cherries 25 minutes ago, but they seem to have resisted my attack. If you cheered during the break, as the boss meter wasn't up at that time, like I saw that you cheered, and I'm like, oh, I should put the boss up, because it probably didn't record that. Delcorin. So that's probably why that happened. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully it'll do so in the future. I'm sorry, Bubonic. Yeah, for those of you wondering, the random character generator worksheet that I use is up on the Discord channel. So download it. You can tweak with the statistics. If you want more than 10% of your population to be evil, adjust that accordingly. It's completely up to you. And I'll be happy to give you advice on how to make these probability curves and do things along those lines. So EDL asks, can I ask you for some DM advice? And yes, you can always do so. I'm running a Tomb of Annihilation campaign currently, and one of the PCs has the relative who was murdered not long ago before the PC himself even came to the city. While he's trying to find his revenge, I'm thinking about giving him some clues that one of the local factions is to blame. The fact is that this faction can be a party ally in a main quest, so I want the party to choose between personal feelings and having a stronger ally to fight a greater evil. What do you think? Isn't that too harsh to make them choose like that? Oh, yeah, unfortunately, Del, your assassination attempt was thwarted by the monitor not being there. So it was a matter of timing. I'm sorry, Del. Now, EDL, what I would recommend, what you're going for seems fine. But there is a way to go about it to make sure that there is an understanding at the table. If you want the PC to take the blame or to take the hit or the fall or whatever, I would make sure you bring him aside and explain this and be able to answer questions that aren't spoilery about the PC. I would ask the PC also if they're comfortable with this, and say, look, I'm going to set you up. I want you to role play this. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about it, and when I prompt you, I want you to then respond naturally as you will. Don't worry, though. I will ensure that there is a chance for vindication or redemption, or you can explain that I'm using this moment and I need you, like talk about tying things in as a PC as a co-DM. I need you to roll with me on this. I need you to act naturally to your character because this is your character, but go along with me here and I'll make sure, no harm will come to you in a long-term situation, but I want to increase the tension, right? Talk about your intention. Talk about what you're trying to do. I want to increase the tension, or I want to make the party ask some questions. Or you can even say, look, this is ultimately going to vindicate you and make sure that you're no longer a red herring, or your tribe or your faction. And say, so I'm going to put the heat on you right now. And it's going to be up to you to lead the charge and say, look, maybe my people did it. And unfortunately, I don't have specific knowledge of Tomb of Annihilation. If Bobicus was in here, he's running that. He might be able to answer that his own way since he's DMing Tomb of Annihilation currently. I'm doing Curse of Strahd. So for the particular instances, I can't comment. But for generally what you're doing, I would approach it that way. Have a conversation with your PC. Show a little ankle, but still keep things a mystery, and communicate and say, look, I'm going to put you in the hot seat, but I have your back the whole time. Roll with me, trust me, and this is going to end up, this is going to be a big story breakthrough, and I want to use this as an opportunity to spotlight your character some. And a lot of times that will then lower the concern that a player might have that, well, my DM's picking on me or doesn't care about me, because you've gone out of your way in order to assure the character that, yes, I need you to step up and take the heat, but for doing so, I'll make sure that there's a reward of some appropriate fashion on the back end. Does that help answer your question, EDL? Yeah, you're very welcome. If you run into situations like this, please ask in chat. I will do my best to answer, and there's others who might have experience and can lend in their own years, months of whatever, their own insight. Even if Dark Wolf is still in here, she's a newer player, but she might have an opinion too that she wants to share, and there's nothing wrong with that. Remember, a big lesson in D&D is that this is all about communication. This is a storytelling game. This is a game where we're looking at each other in the eyes and we're expressing our thoughts and our feelings. We're using logic. We're using the things that we know in and out of character in appropriate situations. And so as long as you're communicating, a lot of what could go wrong probably won't go wrong. And you can often ask favors of your PCs or PCs of you as a DM if there's context, if there's supporting thought. Hey, I'd like to do this one thing that's different. And would you let me? And if so, I would be willing to sacrifice X in order to gain Y. Or as a DM, you're asking a player to sacrifice some reputation with the party in order to gain something later. And if you pose it like a role-playing challenge, right? You're showing confidence and trust in your players. You're treating your players as thinking adults, and you're putting them in a position where this might as well be a big encounter. This is a trap. This is a hazard. This is a battle, right? Only it's one of morals. It's one of trust. It's an inner challenge to who they are and how they think. Can they accept someone who apparently has betrayed them, but wants to make it up to them, and might even be able to lead them to proof otherwise? Uh, can you overcome this? And that itself, that could be a milestone that earns a level or experience depending on what you're doing. And that's another reason why your PCs are your co-DMs. So EDL, any of you who are thinking about DMing, you have to trust your PCs. And you have to be able to adapt to them because your PCs are going to help flesh out your world. We made this city. Bink. There we go. Over 9,000 hours in MS Paint. And here's our city that we made. Well, if this city has even 2,000 people living in it, which sounds like a lot, but it's not really. Bell curves, yes. You will find plenty of bell curves in there, Bubonic. Your PCs, even though you generated this map as a DM, your PCs are still going to fill out half of this map. Because they're going to go into the general store. They're going to walk into a weaponsmith. They're going to, I don't know, they're going to try and go fishing for something. All of a sudden now, you as the DM are thinking, okay, so who runs the general store? What are they going to catch? I need to sort of make a little bit of an ecosystem here. This is kind of based on Everglades. Are they going to get something like an alligator, a big fish, a big clump of seaweed, or some equivalent, or the like? And so it's important, as I lean back into my green screen here, it is important that you are observant and you are receiving information from your PCs and not just doling out information and expecting uniform conformity. Because your PCs will help breathe life into the world that you want. And especially you want your PCs paying attention to you. And so PCs, take cues from your DM and ask about the world. You don't have to, act like a baby and put everything in your mouth and, colors everywhere and, what do things taste like and smell like and feel like and all this. You want to pick and choose your questions, but realize that as a PC, you are the animated force, right? As a DM, I'm reacting to things. You are the living, breathing entities in the world that have full control over their capabilities. So when you touch something, it comes to life. When you're in a boat, suddenly the river's not just there, the river's flowing around you. And it has fish because you can observe the fish. And this can bleed off into some interesting philosophical arguments, do things exist if we don't observe them? And we can go on from there. Has experience with only Horde Rise. Okay. That's the dragon. Is that the dragon series, Bubonic? It's like Horde of the Dragon Queen, isn't it? It is. Okay. There's some cool minis that came out of those boxes. Rise of Tiamat, that's right. Okay. Oh, Tiamat's a fun dragon. Speaking as a DM, right? So as a PC, you make the world come alive around you by your observances, by your interactions with people and things. This is empowering your DM to then continue to make the world come alive. Instead of just describing a storeroom, there's so much more. Well, what's the thing made out of? Or, why does this look like furniture has been scraped through the dusty ground? And you are unraveling this mystery and you're interacting with things more and more. It's a facilitation of the conversation between both parties, just like we were talking about with EDL. Does that make sense for you all as prospective PCs or as DMs? Do any of you have questions about being a PC or a DM or maybe a special condition, or if what I'm talking about doesn't make sense, like how can I as a PC make something come alive around me? Please let me know. Strahd is still my favorite evil NPC of all official campaign books. The way that they set him up in this is done very well. I don't want to have any spoilers for people who haven't played through it, but Strahd is an amazing module that you can replay and it'll be different every time. I would highly suggest it. Bubonic says, you're getting ready to make a level 20, and I needed this random thing to decide on the esoterics of who and what. Well, when you make that character, Bubonic, I would love for you to either help, take us through the process and kind of give us live updates on what you've rolled, or just come in and talk about him or her. I'd love to hear about the character that you're making, and especially if you get to use this character in some way. Hearing about PCs and how they're and how they're working, how they're interacting is amazing, because everyone is different. All campaigns are different. We use different sets of rules, homebrew or otherwise. Some people might use different splat books. We had someone in chat last night who was using some third-party splat book PDFs and wanted an opinion. And it's things that maybe you've never considered before, or it might seem a little like overbalanced or, too powerful in one way or the other, but it's still making you consider it. And I like hearing about that. Dark Wolf says that she just finished outlining Siraya. You just have to outline her wolf friend. Ah, cool. Good progress. Again, I would love to see that. So, drop it off to the store sometime or bring it next week when you come to play Strahd. And if you don't mind, I'd love to take a picture of it and show everyone in chat your creativity. Space Summoner was wondering about backgrounds. Are they just something we choose at random? Yes and no. This is going to be partly up to your DM, Space Summoner. Your DM might tell you, yeah, you have to roll random for everything. And in that case, if we come down to the character, what we've done here for a dice roll summary for your random generation, you can roll a D13 to randomly determine a background. I would imagine most DMs will allow you to choose a background of some kind. And they'll tell you PHB +1, meaning you can use one other source book, like official source book, and that's it. Or any source for a background. And some DMs might even sit down with you and create a custom one. That's something that we can end up doing here for a session in this channel, is creating some custom backgrounds and going through that. So as a DM, if you want to help a player come up with something, we can do that. So if you really just wanted to randomize it, then grab a D13 and hit roll. In this case, if you wanted to do that, you'd get number 11. Number 11 of the 13 in the core PHB. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this would mean that you're a sailor or a pirate with the optional of having a bad reputation of some kind, maybe outstanding gambling debts or something. And then all you'd have to do is come over to your PHB, go to personality and background, and they're listed alphabetically. So in this case, we would come over to sailor, and you get 2 skill proficiencies and some other tool proficiencies perhaps, and some equipment that you would kind of carry on you by being a part of your background. Something that's important to remember, Space Summoner, your background is what you were before you were an adventurer. Most people are not just born with a sword and shield in their hand. They practiced a trade. They were, as Monger had it, he is a guild artisan. So before his dwarf character is setting out into the world, he's this kind of reclusive tinker manufacturer of some kind. And that's how he earned his living. That's really what he did. But that profession lends some skills and insights and tools and other things that you can then work into you being the adventurer, because you're thrust into that position at this point in your life. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Now, I will say something, Space Summoner. What I do is, for my 5th edition campaigns that I've run privately, I told my PCs, one aspect of your background must be random, because I want you to be challenged as a role player. You all have played long enough. I want to take one thing out of your control and have you roll with it. Right? So I then bargained with them, kind of like what I was describing to EDL. I said, all right, one has to be random, and you can choose everything else that you want. So if you want to, I'm not saying this in a bad way, but if you want to min-max or if you want to optimize or something, you can do so. However, everything above the one roll that you roll randomly, I will give you a floating inspiration point that you can use at some other future point in time, right? That's the trade-off. As a DM, I am saying if you're willing to give up some control of your character as your character matures and develops, and you're challenging yourself as a role player to take on random aspects, I will reward you with an inspiration point above the one that you can normally carry, as a way to kind of get out of a pinch if you find yourself in one. That was the give and take and the sort of the social pact that I made with my players. So in this instance, because you get to roll 2 personality traits and then 1 each from here, of the 5 rolls, 1 has to be random, and you don't get the bonus inspiration for that because that's a requirement across the board. But if you wanted to, you could start your character with 5 inspiration points if you did everything completely random within your background. So that's the communication and that's the give and take. Okay, you took shots of your mini. May you, yes, please, Ro. You can post a link, like to an Imgur or whatever, or a photo bucket or whatever that you have going. You're welcome to post that up. So, also welcome and thanks for watching, Tomi. See, all this cool stuff, all this great inspiration. And you know what? This is a little bit simpler of a drawing, and I don't know the overall art level as compared to some of these other people, with like super detail stuff. But you can still look at this, and this character still tells a story. And in fact, they kind of went with, instead of having normal feet, they gave this character the kind of the goat ankles, or whatever you want to call it, the cloven-hooved ankles. And talk to your DM. Tieflings aren't normally described as having that, but outside of Unearthed Arcana, there's not sub-races for tieflings. So what we did as consideration for a random character generation, well, tieflings are half human and half fiend of some kind, right? Half devil or half demon. You can choose to maybe embrace aspects of one half or the other. So if we rolled that, in fact, we can even say the character we made tonight, she was a tiefling. She is a tiefling. She's not dead yet. Now, she favored her human half. Could that just be in her mannerisms, in the way she talks or carries herself? If you're not changing the mechanics of your character, and again, this is you being a co-DM, you're suggesting something to your DM as a peer, as an equal, and saying, well, look, my character really, she was born more into the diabolical side of her heritage. Even if it's 5149, her fiendish genes are winning out. So is it okay with you if I describe my character as having more of these like cloven-hooved feet? I'm not going to change my speed. I'm not asking for favors or to be able to do something I normally can't. But for mechanical, or not for role-playing purposes, for fluff purposes, I want to come across as a little bit more fiendish than other tieflings, which could even cause a disparity, right? Because what if another player's playing a human tiefling and they have normal feet? So now you've just fluffed up your character and are doing an awesome job. And look, we just had this whole conversation about, a simpler drawing than some of the others that we've seen. And here's a 3D model even. Oh, okay, it's Zoc. Cool. Well, welcome. So, Zoc, I showed off your Sculpty figures. So, by the way, everyone, Tomy is the one who sculpted those figures for he and his kids. So, if you want to say good job or cool or ask for some advice, he's the one to talk to. He did an awesome job with that. See, look, isn't that a cool idea, too? Almost kind of reminds me of Regal from Tales of Symphonia, doesn't it? For any of you who've played. Let's see what Ro is sharing here. Does this bring something up? Nope, that page doesn't exist. You'll have to try again, Ro. But if you throw a link up, then I'll put that up on stream here so everyone can see. So yeah, we have all kinds of options that are open to us, and you need to make sure as a PC you are not just on the receiving end of information. It's imperative that you give this feedback to your DM so that she or he can continue to populate the world and make it come alive around you. Because unlike video games, we don't have programming boundaries. You don't run into an invisible wall or clip through a floor or something along those lines. We make this as real as we want it to be. We make this as intense as we want it to be. We make this as vividly detailed, as comical, as horrific as we want it to be. But I, as your DM talking to you as my PCs, I can only do so much. I can only, dangle the hook of the adventure in front of you, but it's up to you to take that hook and then provide the fight. Whoa, look at that. So, if any of you are just joining us right now, Rowmonger here is a Rowmonger said that he's a first-time D&D player. I'm sorry, I'm presuming he. Forgive me. It does tend to be male-dominated, but we are seeing a lot of women. It's 2018, standard, disclaimer. But Row, she or he, it, we, they, Zer. There's all kinds of pronouns now. Okay, so Row said that he played 40K, the miniature tabletop game, for the longest time, and is just getting started in D&D. And so while he's making his character, which is this dwarven tinkerer, who tends to be kind of like OCD and isolated, he's bringing with him his skill sets from 40K. Now you may wonder, oh, well, come on, this is 40,000 years in the future. This is science fiction. How does that relate? It's still storytelling. We're still operating on good versus evil, characters with internal motivations. And including here, you can imagine that after painting an army or 10 or whatever, that Row has these abilities to bring these characters to life in miniature format. So even though you or he might be weak on the rules of D&D, you're still inspiring a story. You're still telling, you can look at this character and now you can ask questions of Row. Whoa, so, what does he do? Does he, say he's wearing all this armor. Does he do this as a way to filter out people, right? If he's an antisocial kind of OCD person. Is he a germaphobe? Does this try and keep out rain and air and filter things because he doesn't like being dirty? All of a sudden, we're building an entire story around this one player character. And heck, Rowmonger, you might have never even considered this stuff. But again, we're touching the model. This is kind of the best I can do here. We're touching the model. Ow, pointy. We're making it come alive. We're asking you things now that you as the DM are having to consider. Oh, maybe I never thought of it that way. Maybe he is kind of hermetically sealed in his armor, or he breathes through a respirator because he's a germaphobe or something along those lines. Last time you checked. Just make sure to use some hand sanitizer or wash your hands afterwards. EDL says, I don't know much about 40K lore, but they are awesome. EDL, that's cool of you for showing support back for Row. And Row, again, thank you for sharing these well, I don't even know if this is a work in progress or a whip anymore. He looks like he's pretty well done. Look at that. The orcs, yeah, orcs with a K or a C. And I'll throw these up too while Rose is searching for that. Just so if there's newcomers here, because it looks like there have been some, we're talking about interactions between PCs and DMs. If you as a PC bring something like this to the table, your DM should be impressed and is like, wow, you're actually invested in this story, and he or she would suspect that you're more apt to pay attention, you're putting in work and effort, and not necessarily play favorites, because you shouldn't play favorites with your players, but this is showing effort and dedication to something, and it's encouraging, it's building energy. Dwarfophobes. That's why there are no more squats. Ah, so Shad is also Shad is a longbeard in the 40k lore too, huh? I mean, I'll take credit for there not being any more squats because I was a NID player, but hashtag just saying. Delcorn says, "Don't feel bad, Ro. I'm a straight white male that identifies as a straight white male and prefers the pronouns he and him." Matt and I talked about this when he first joined. Yeah, I'm a live and let live type of person. If you're not hurting someone, you're a consenting adult. I have other things I got to take care about. I have bills to pay. I have other things to worry. For a broad audience, I want to try and be open to you as much as I can. Though we do have a little bit of poetic license as we're talking about storytelling, female dwarf or something along those lines. Or if someone here doesn't, some people may want to come to Twitch and not worry about one thing or another, then hey, all I know is Del is named Del. Actually, Del Corin. And even then, that's not your real name, but it could be. Bubonic is bubonic. And, we go from there. Plus, that's also good practice for D&D, right? You're getting into your character. So we had Kitty on Page, which was the Twitch name, but she was describing her character to us as we were having this role play back and forth. And so she has her Twitch name, which is not her real name, but her Twitch name wasn't even her real name because we were all addressing her as Yep, damn you nids. The Emperor will take revenge. Well, I mean, come at us, because honestly, we're going to be caught between a rock and a hard place, right? Because something is supposedly chasing us from whence we came. And then we're hitting... we just got done tearing through the orcs, and, who's next? There's the Imperium. The Imperium could hope to maybe have the Necrons rise up and stop us, since there's no biomass to harvest. That's like the best bet. That's a huge battle of attrition right there. Yes, Del, I know. Unfortunately, a helicopter is not even a choice in D&D, at least not yet. So anyway, these were some of the other models that were made here too. And this was Space is heading out for the night. Thanks for the chat. Space, I super appreciate you stopping in tonight, participating in chat, being a part of what we're doing, asking questions. Come back anytime. We would love to have you back and to go through the process. And I'll help you. I'll help you ease into D&D, ask questions, and not just me, but as you've seen, there's a lot of us here who we've had different experiences, and we can share those and come together as a community. So Romonger, is this something that are you painting these orcs up to run in D&D as orcs? Like, are you going to give these to your DM so that your DM is going to throw these orc characters at you in a battle of some kind, or they're going to be your nemesis, something along those lines? Cool. All right. I could dig it. And again, this is influence on how you as a PC are a co-DM, because now you are helping out. And by the way, if any of you were wondering what green stuff is, you're looking at green stuff right here. But now this world that Rowmonger is adventuring in is going to be that much more detailed, or it's going to be that much more populated with orcs or something, because he's providing these minis. He's helping to make the world come a little bit more alive through the DM for the other players. And this was a PC contribution. Dark Wolf goes on an adventure in the plains again. You need to you're attacked by a kobold mage. Uh-oh. Well, are you going to win 50 experience points? You need to get an 8 or higher with a 1 modifier. Nope, unfortunately, even if you had advantage, Dark Wolf, you didn't get it. I'm sorry. He asked for orcs. Well, you're giving him some orcs, man. I better ask for some orcs, too. Actually, I did get to use... this atmospheric music is from Tabletop Audio. And it's called like Dinotopia or something. I did send my my PCs in a prior campaign to like a tropical island, and it was filled with giant bugs. And I got to use my my Tyrannid minis as D&D minis, and so I kind of translated the stats of my Tyrannids into D&D. This was 3.5 edition at the time, I believe. So I translated them into 3.5 stats, and we actually had a PC party versus Tyrannid Swarm as they're adventuring on this this tropical island. No, you can't win them all, unfortunately. Bubonic always preferred the Eldar to the lesser races in Warhammer. Yeah, Bubonic, you forgot to push your glasses up when you said that. Oh. This is some cool stuff. Wow, look at this. By the way, your verdigris on this is really, really nice, Rowmonger. How much is tabletop D&D like Baldur's Gate? Um, are you just asking how much is a PHB, or are you talking about like the board game D&Ds? I'm not quite sure I follow you, Rowmonger. Uh-oh, I'm a male goblin fighter. How about you? Meh. Yes, PC Baldur's Gate. I don't know if it was late second edition. I thought it was a third edition that it was based on. Are we talking about the one that you can play as Minsk, who has the hamster named Boo? Ah, okay. Um, I don't know how much that game is. You might want to look on Steam or some other places, eBay maybe. Um, the mechanics are going to be different than if you're playing a fifth edition game, but it's still going to be fun. It's still going to be D&D themed, and it'll tell a good story. Candlekeep, kill, Balespawn, trying to get the new god of murder. Um, I'm not. I don't know if I'm following you on that, row. Well, all right. I'm gonna pause here. I'm going to drink some more tea, and I'm going to get up and do a stretch, and I have a cat over here that needs some petting. So let's go to the short rest screen. I'll be back in about 5 or 10 minutes, at least live on the mic. I'll still be around in chat after a minute or so here, and we will pick up and go into our sort of our open segment where we'll talk about a lot of different things.